This item right here is delicious, and you can put it on pretty much any dessert to make it even sweeter. In America, we would just colloquially call this whipped cream. Even though it is in fact whipped cream, it's faster to say whipped cream. Sounds nice, right? Comes out of a pressurized can, but you know, it is what it is. In the UK, if you're American, I assure you this is not a joke. It is in fact called squirty cream. Come on now, I don't think I need to explain why that sounds funny and or childish. It's just the one word that catches me off guard if my girlfriend uses it, for instance, especially in her posh little accent, because it sounds like something you would say before you knew the real name for it. You know, like the name you come up with at age 8 that you never grew out of and no one has had the heart to tell you. You know it has another name, right? A name that adults use, but that's it. Squirty cream. Ah, it's cream. You squirt. Squirty cream. And yet we get bullied for sidewalk. Yeah, more on that later. If you're wondering, who is this man? Why is he talking about words? Hello there, my name is Evan Edinger, and I am an American-born UK citizen who's been in the UK now for 12 years. And you'd think that maybe after 12 years, I'd get used to all the funny little British words that exist that are not existent in the US. You'd be very wrong. It's actually what fuels me. Just like this cream. It's whipped cream. Huh? Delicioso. Today, I've got another 12 words for you that Brits use all the time that would come off as outright childish if you use them in America, and a special word that does the exact opposite across the pond. So, let's go. Depending on where you live in the States, you could call this a few different things. Soda, pop, soft drink, Coke, which I'd argue is just far too confusing to me. Like, which Coke do you want, sir? Orange one. No thanks, that's too confusing. But in Britain, they go, this drink is fizzy. It is a fizzy drink. Yeah, yet again, it just sounds like something you'd come up with before you knew the actual name for it. It's quaint, sure. It's a little childish. But I do want to say, not all of Brits use the term fizzy drink. Mostly, Southerners like myself are going to be hearing the word. However, if you go anywhere north of the South, Midlands, North, Wales, you're going to hear the term pop, the same term used in the Midwestern states. So that's quite interesting. Also, if you go even further north to Scotland, you'll hear terms like fizzy juice or just juice, or sometimes ginger. That's fun. Or if you pop over across to Northern Ireland, they use the term minerals to refer to soda. All right. And also, I found out recently that in Wales, they use the term council pop to refer to tap water, which is just inarguably hilarious. Now, I do just want to clarify, despite the fact that fizzy drink is the main word that I have heard since moving to the UK, and it's a word that now I kind of use every once in a while, in all of my 34 years of life in the States and in the UK, never have I once heard a single soul ask for a pop. Despite that being an incredibly popular term in the States when you go west of like Ohio, actually probably just west of eastern Pennsylvania. And in the UK, if you basically go north of, I don't know, Watford, you're going to start hearing some pop. I grew up in a soda pocket of the States, and now I live in a fizzy drink pocket of the UK. I asked my friend Bliss why I've never heard her ask for a pop, and she says whenever she comes down south, she just tries to blend in, so she says fizzy drink. I want to hear a Brit say pop, all right? I'm about to pop off. But while we're on the topic of drinks, there's quite a few times when I'll pick up a word and then get confused on whether or not I just haven't heard the word before, or maybe it's a British word. 9 times out of 10, it's a British word. So interesting. One of those times, I think, is when you ask for a glass of champagne. In the UK, I rarely hear people say glass of champagne. They almost always say a glass of bubbly, a glass of bubbles. And I feel like in the US, in certain pockets, they might use the term. They definitely would know what it meant. But I feel like most Americans would say champagne or maybe sparkling wine. But there is one extra word I wanted to touch on, which is definitely not used in the States. And it's, can I get a glass of champers? Love a glass of champers. Champers. That's not necessarily childish, but it does sound fun. Now, this is the next one. Think about what you would say when you saw this. As an American, you might see this and go, oh, I don't know, Evan, that looks like a fancy dress. You'd be right. But say that to a Brit and they'll be like, no, that's not fancy dress. That's a fancy dress. Now this is fancy dress. Dressing like a bottle of lube. Excuse me. Yeah, that's fancy dress over here. Weirdly enough, the word costume isn't really used that often in the UK. Instead, they use the term fancy dress, which does sound a bit childish. They don't have costume parties, they have fancy dress parties where you can dress as anything you like, from a bottle of lube to the mini budget. It's my friend Josh. I thought it was an incredible costume at a fancy dress party this past Halloween. 10 out of 10, no notes. But some Brits in my audience might be like, whoa, Evan, excuse me. We definitely use the word costume, just can't think of where. Well, actually. The word costume is used quite often in the UK, but not in regards to, putting on a cosplay type outfit that is kind of fanciful or scary or, pretending to be someone else. Unless that someone else you're pretending to be is an Olympic swimmer. Because for some reason, rather than use the term bathing suit, swim shorts, swimmers, swim trunks, no. In the UK, they embody the swimmer, okay? They're not just putting on a pair of swim shorts. No, they're putting on a whole swimming costume. It's a pretty shit costume, let's be honest. All you need is, come on, just the bottoms. If it was a swimming costume, I'd expect a whole onesie, the goggles, that's a swimming costume. But here, they really embody the swimmer, okay? They're not just trying to put on an item of clothes. They want to become them. Imagine if we used that terminology with other jobs, like, sorry, honey, I've got to go get my solicitor costume on to go to court, or gonna put on my doctoring costume to do some surgery. Asterisk, I do just want to say that my girlfriend wouldn't really use any of these terms. She'd actually use the word togs because her family's really Irish, so that clocks, because she togs a lot about that, so. Words are fun.
Oh my God.
Oh, sorry, that was a bit of a spoiler there for my video next week on this crazy US traffic signal that everyone is ignoring, including cops and this specific vehicle. But this vehicle that blows by me has quite a childish name in both the US and the UK, depending on where you're from. My dad was actually a truck driver, and so I'd say my dad drove a big truck for a living. And yeah, I would say that sounds incredibly childish. But in other parts of the States, there are many other terms for a big truck, including a tractor trailer, 18-wheeler, big rig, semi, and those are pretty standard adult-sounding names. In the UK, the name sounds more like the name of a 45-year-old horse girl who chain smokes cigarettes. A little specific, but it's called a lorry. To me, the word lorry is just too soft to convey a big truck, but I do use the word regularly when I'm around Brits, so, it's mostly a term I've adopted. Some Brits call them HGVs, or heavy goods vehicles, which is a very practical name, similar to the German word for them, which is LKWs, or Lastkraftwagen, cargo power vehicles, basically. Though from my personal experience, I've only ever heard Germans say LKWs, so very similar. Hope you're learning something interesting. But in the US, if you need to clean up using some soap, clean some dishes, you use your dish soap. In the UK, that wasn't very fanciful. Not fanciful enough for them. And so you either have the much more fancy and based on a brand fairy liquid, come on, or they go even more literal. What is this? Is it a solid? No, it's a liquid. What's it for? Washing up. It's a washing up liquid. It's another example of, just a very literal term that the UK uses to describe an item, similar to, for instance, in the US, if you want some gum, you just ask for some gum. In the UK, that's not enough. They're like, what do I do with this gum? Do I shove it up my bum? No, sir. It's for chewing. Let's call it chewing gum, so you know where to put it. You put it in your mouth. It's chewing gum. Why not just say gum, right? What other type of gums you talk about? I don't know. I'm only bringing this up because there's a very famous Stephen Fry bit in which he's like, Americans have to be told where to walk. It's a sidewalk. And they have to go horseback riding. Where else are you riding? And I'm like, excuse me, sir. All right. Washing up liquid? Chewing gum. I'm just saying that it's really fun that these type of differences exist in both languages. That is what's so fun to really dive into the details about, all right? Doesn't mean one country's dumber, or it's just the way that languages develop, All right? Chewing gum, people. I'm already ready for the comments. What? How do you differentiate between bubble gum? Wow, it's just gum. They're all gum. Come on. You can specify if it's bubble gum, but what else are you doing except chewing? You chew all the gum. Are you putting gum in your mouth and just, I don't know, what is it? Something maxing? Mewing. There's these Gen Z degenerates that degenerates, horrible pun, I'm so sorry. They will literally buy really hard gum to hurt their jaw, hoping that it sculpts them rather than just be thankful for what they have, which is, a world we've left them in suffering. All right, let's move on. Actually, really quick side note. Does anyone else feel like the word elevator sounds more British than the word lift? Like, I feel like the countries swapped words. I feel like saying, can I have the elevator? Sounds so much more posh than, can I have the lift? And Americans, I feel like that's the stereotype. Like I said, it's interesting when it goes the other way. But the next one, really cute, really short. It does sound childish though. Do I use it? Absolutely. I picked up on it pretty much immediately after I moved to the UK because it's just more fun. Brits do not really say McDonald's. They just say Macca's. I picked this up so fast. Can I get a Macca's? You want to go to Macca's? No, thanks. I prefer actually having good food. Oh, wow. Unrelatable. People like, there's just other places that are better at, if you want a cheap, bad burger, there are lots of places, obviously more in the US than the UK, but still, come on. I will say it's very useful after a night out when it's the only place open, you're a bit drunk, you walk in, they're playing classical music, there's a fight going on, you're in the Brixton McDonald's, the Brixton Macca's. That story has just made everyone that's been to the Brixton Macca's go, that's it. They play the classical music. There's usually a fight outside. That's the Brixton Macca's experience. Either way, saying Macca's instead of McDonald's and a lot of the other examples, I feel like you might be picking up a trend here. I find a lot of British words for things are like hen in German or ito or ita in Spanish. They're diminutives to make a word a little cuter. Bread is bread, but what if it was a cute little bread, a way of life? Well, it would be a Brötchen. Or what about a cute little cookie? A galletita, una galletita. It's a much cuter little cookie. In British English, you'll find the sound ee, as in like my initials, put at the end of a lot of things to make them sound cuter, a little bit more childish. It's just a little bit more approachable of a word, I'd say. You've got the word telly for television, which I use. The word, by the way, I use the word telly. If you are a TV licensing van spying on my house, I just wanted to say I use the word. I don't use the telly. I don't know if you've seen my video on how TV licensing works in the UK, but it's an interesting one if you haven't seen that yet. Other words that are made cuter in Britain, instead of breakfast, brekkie. Listen, another one that I picked up on immediately. Why say breakfast? Brekkie. It does sound cuter. I know you might say it sounds childish, but it's cute. Also, my friend Luke has just had a baby, and he's always saying he's got to change those nappies instead of diaper. And I can't get on board. Listen, I don't use the word diaper because I don't have any reason to at the moment, but I feel like I would just say diapers. I think we're going to have a fight because Heather's probably going to say nappies. I'm going to say diapers. I'm like, excuse me, this child is going to say diapies or nappers. It's going to be a messed up one. Anyway, you've also got ice lolly, you've got wheelie bin. Honestly, there are loads more examples that people in the comments will probably be leaving, which are just cuter versions of words, thanks to British people just making them that way. If you used any of these in the States, though, I feel like people would just think you're trying way too hard to be too cutesy-wootsy. But the next words, I do still find weird, okay? A lot of these previous words I've gotten on board with. I've lived here long enough. I'm like, yeah, I'll take my brekkie. I'll take my Macca's. Also, there are a lot of new eyes on my channel, so if you haven't already hit the subscribe button to tell the algorithm that you control your own destiny, please be sure to do that now. Like I said, my big video on the crazy pedestrian crossings, hopefully coming next week. This video is here, so I have more time to get that one perfect. Anyway, so like I said, some of these words I've picked up on, but this next group, listen, I just still can't. It does sound too childish to me, even though it took me an age to get used to Brits referring to the entirety of a bathroom, a restroom, a lavatory as a toilet, the item in the bathroom. It's other things that they say that I'm just not on board with. I've got to go wee. Oh, whoa, that's used so much over here. I've got to go wee. Gonna go take a wee. Maybe, I've got to go take a poo. I'm gonna take a poo in the forest. No, it just sounds so bad. From an American perspective, it sounds psychopathy. Like you being, I'm gonna go take a poo. And you're like, you have some problems, actually. These words are genuinely words we have in the States. Well, poo, not really. Most Americans would say poop. But, well, that was a nice pop. But these are the words we primarily use, I'd say, before the age of like 7. So hearing adults say words that only 7-year-olds and under say, it just gives you a bit of a weird vibe. You know how in the UK, the terms sir and miss are used pretty exclusively when you're in school? It's kind of like that. Imagine hearing the term sir or miss as an adult. You'd be like, oh, what are you doing that for? Well, just visit the States because we actually do use those words regularly. So, I mean, it's kind of like that. That being said, I have very much grown accustomed to hearing, I've got to go nip to the loo. That one doesn't sound too childish to me, it just sounds pleasantly British. I'm not a big fan of the expressions loo roll and bog roll, though. I will stick to toilet paper. Also, as an aside, I think you'd appreciate, growing up, the word lavatory was referring to the word bathroom, from my experience, pretty much exclusively in elementary school. As soon as I got out of elementary school, I never heard the word lav or lavatory ever again. You'd ask, can I go to the lavatory? No, it'd be it. Any other Americans want to chime in if that was the same for you? Because I know New Jersey is quite a weird pocket. However, from what I do know, the word lavatory is actually used in the UK, very rarely, pretty much by the most posh of society, which makes sense because usually those are the type of people who really love a Tory. I was really proud of that, I'm sorry. But speaking of school, for the next set of words, if you use the US word in the UK, you sound a bit like a child. And if you use the UK word in the US, you also sound quite a bit childish. Really interesting how this one flips. The word revolves around education. In the US, the word used for your place of learning between the ages of 4 and 18 is school. Elementary school, middle school, high school. It's all school. But then if you decide to go to a place of further learning, most people would say they went to college, even if it is part of a university. But for instance, Either way, colloquially, you would still say about your university, I went to school there. Or you use the expression not many Brits I've met have understood for some reason, which is that's my alma mater, which is Latin for nourishing mother. You know, the university you graduated from nourishes you with knowledge. Fair play. But either way, it's still your school. Tangent aside, I ran into some communication issues when I first moved here. I'd tell my manager at the old Urban Outfitters, sorry, I can't come into work today because I have school. Which, of course, he found very funny because in British English, what I've essentially said to him is, please, sir, I need to study for my GCSE maths exam, rather than, please, sir, the contingencies module of my master's in actuarial science program is sending me spiraling into a deep pit of despair. I cannot come to work today. You know, very different things. But as I said, the word college in the US refers to your university or your bachelor's degree. But in the UK, even that word, college, only refers to a much younger time, usually when you're under 18 years old. It's a specific school that you go to after secondary school where you study your A levels, which then allow you to go to university. So college in the US, bachelor's degree. College in the UK, just before that. And most Brits, myself included in this, as you just noticed, refer to the place that they get their degrees as their university. That's now a word I use all the time. However, I'd say more Brits actually use the shortening, which does sound a bit childish. I use it all the time, and that is uni. What's your uni of choice? I went to uni there down in Durham, up in Durham, unless you're from Scotland. I use the term all the time now, and I don't really think it sounds that childish, but I am heavily biased. I feel like it is cuter, and it makes sense. I went to uni. That's my uni. But saying I went to school, don't use that here. Now, one childish term that I've definitely brought up on my channel before is tummy. Not because Brits necessarily use the term all the time, but their doctors do. I went to the NHS and the GP referred to my abdomen as my tummy, which is a word you'd use, at a school age, a primary school age, but then you learn the proper word. Now, I've seen the argument made that the NHS uses the word tummy because it's a word that can be most widely understood for all ages and education levels. 2 points to that. Bit depressing, the state of education in this country, that doctors are unsure if someone has learned the word abdomen, which is a word I learned in the 4th grade. I don't think this is a privilege thing, by the way. It's just a standard body word. I'm not saying doctors should be starting conversations like, do you have pain in the suprapubic or inguinal region? Because those are hyper-specific terms mostly learned by learned professionals working in health. But abdomen just feels like a standard word. And this is just my opinion, but I would rather a professional looking after my health talk to me like an adult. He makes the assessment, this person looks like he knows what the word abdomen is, But if a 34-year-old woman comes in with a pain in her chest, does a British GP go, oh, honey, you experiencing pain in them titties? You got them booby pain? I don't think so. I'd hope not. If a guy comes in with pain lower, is he going to say, you got pain in your willy instead of penis? I'm just saying I understand the reasoning, but I want to know where the line is drawn there, all right? I just don't think it's that sound. And finally, this one I feel like Americans are going to laugh at and say, there's no way this is real, Evan, you're pulling our leg, but it refers to this breakfast food. Americans will refer to this as French toast, and I myself still call this French toast. Brits, though, eggy bread. Eggy bread. Do I even have to explain myself? I feel like with a name like eggy bread, Germans in my audience are looking at it like, boah, das klingt viel direkter als arme Rita. So, they call it poor knights, like as in like, jousting knights. I guess Germans, what's going on? I feel like the eggy bread word is actually way more German than Amarita. It is just a stereotype that a lot of German words, the way the language works is you could just combine lots of words together and it makes one logical word. Like, what's the name of the pill that you take if you don't want to have kids? Die Anti-Baby-Pillen. Beautiful. And if you thought, oh, that's fun, I wish there were more that you could talk about, well, I've actually made an entire video with over 1 million views about that, so give that a watch. Otherwise, thanks for watching, vielen Dank, and tschüss. Tschüssi! I like how this went from British American to Evans back into his German kick. With a little Spanish spice. Well, I assure you this isn't what it looks like.